What do you do as a homeowner to protect yourself and your family and your pets and your environment from lead poisoning? One of the other issues about lead paint is not just the dust while you're doing the work, but it's also chips that may already have been occurring outside your house. If your paint is deteriorating on the siding on your house and there's chips dropping to the ground, those lead chips may get stepped on, they turn to dust, and they never go away. They just keep getting buried under more and more dirt.
Now we're going to talk about lead-safe work practices for the homeowner. We're going to talk about isolation. You walk into a room, you have a door, and your house has a suction and vacuum. So every time somebody opens the back door, if you're not protecting that room that you're going to make lead dust in, it sucks it out into the rest of the house. That's not a good thing. So you go up to the door and you take a piece of plastic and you cover the outside of the door. And they have these things called these little stick-on zippers. You can put a slot down and put your zipper on there. So if you want to go in and out of that room, then you can do that. Then when you get on the other side, you put another piece of plastic on there and you just put a slit in the middle of it. And what that does, it keeps the suction from the house of pulling the plastic out. So you've got it sealed. You tape that thing tight around your frame of your door. Chances are when you pull the tape off, you're going to have paint come off. But that's just part of what you have to do to protect yourself. Whether you have a carpet or whether you have wood floor, it doesn't make any difference. Carpets are the worst because if you get lead dust into that carpet, you could shampoo till the cows come home and you're still going to have lead in your rug. So you take a piece of plastic, you could take regular Visqueen plastic, you tape it down and tape it to the baseboards, or you can take, they have special rolls of like shrink wrap type stuff that have a stickum on it where you can actually roll it across and it sticks right to the carpet areas so you don't have to do a lot of taping. I'm not a fan of plastic to stand on because it becomes slippery, and plastic is electrostatic, so every time that you scrape lead dust around plastic, it clings and sticks to it. So you plastic down so the stuff doesn't get into your floor, whether it be a carpet or wood floor or tile floor, and then you take something that's called ram board. It's a gray material, comes in a roll, it's kind of a thick kind of paper, and you can get that at your local Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you want to buy it, or a contractor's place that sells lumber, and you put that on the floor and you tape it down. That particular surface, you can vacuum it. As far as your protection, there's a few different ways. If you're removing paint with heat, whether it be an infrared, heat gun, heat plate, you need to protect yourself. These masks won't do anything for you if you're making organic vapors from the lead heavy metals. When you start heating it over 650, it starts to gas off and you're sitting there breathing this stuff, and that's the worst way to get poisoned is from the actual gas. It's worse than, and it happens much faster too. And as far as paper masks, you really need to buy the high quality ones, whether N95 or an N100, and don't buy inexpensive ones from any of the hardware stores because they really don't filter the dust that you want to be filtering when you're dealing with lead dust. If you're using heat to remove paint, you get yourself a respirator down to your local Sherwin-Williams or your mom and pop paint store, and I happen to use 3M ones because 3M filters are, most stores carry them. Even Home Depot carries them, Lowe's carries them, and if you're doing dust and you're not doing any heating, this is an N100. We were talking about this is an OV, an organic vapor filter, and the pink part of this is what filters for the particulate dust. The other part of the cartridge actually has charcoal in here, which will filter gas and fumes and things like that. So that if you're working with a
high heat gun,
with a high heat gun or any type of heat or infrared or anything that has heat that's going to soften paint to take it off, you need to use these. And the reason why I say this in a plastic bag is because if you leave these out, what happens is the moisture absorbs into the charcoal and it cuts down the way it filters the organic vapors that you're going to be protecting yourself from. As far as protecting yourself with the different clothing, wearing long sleeve shirts so that all the dust doesn't get all over you is a good way to do that. When you're done at the end of your day, you take your vacuum and you can vacuum yourself off wherever the dust might have gone on to you. Might be in your hair or wherever. You don't want to take your clothes off and shake them, or take your hat and shake it, because then you're just going to blow dust up in the air, and then you're going to breathe it 5 seconds later. As far as washing clothes, If you have children in the house, you should always wash clothes that you've been working around lead dust with, so you don't contaminate your kids' clothes at the same time.
Let's talk about paint stripping methods. There's a lot of ways paints have been stripped over the decades and hundreds of years. Probably the most common one was just dry scraping. When you had alligator and peeling paint, you just get your scraper and catch that loose edge and just scrape off the loose stuff, sand it, feather it down so it's a little smooth, and paint right over it. Problem with that, we've talked a lot about lead dust. It's going everywhere. You can do sanding if you have a vacuum attached to it, a HEPA-Vac. That's a high efficiency particulate vacuum that catches 99.9% of the dust. That's the only way you can safely sand lead paint, is to collect all that dust and then clean out your filters. We'll talk some more about that. Sanding is dust creating. Dry scraping is chip creating, and it becomes dust. The other old method was high heat guns, and unfortunately you still see that. You still see painters going around getting paint off with a high heat gun, open torches or heat guns with that blowing hot air. The danger of that is too, at that 1,000-degree heat, you're vaporizing the lead in the paint. So then there's the chemical method. There's some chemicals that are extremely toxic, that burn your hands, really harsh on the wood. There's also green ones that they call green ones now. They aren't as toxic, but they're still chemicals. And the downside of the chemicals are, one, you have to try to contain that gel from the chemicals. How do you contain all the paint in that gel? Second one is that you're wetting the wood with the chemicals. Most chemicals you have to neutralize. So you got the wet chemical first, then you have the second wet water, whatever, or another neutralizer. There's water again. Connected to that is power washing. That's a fairly common method that homeowners use because it's cheap. You just take a power washer with those nozzles on them. Most people don't know what kind of pressure to set it at. They don't know what kind of nozzle to put it on. And if it's too much pressure, you've got like wormholes all over your house. I did that. I know. You really need to know what you're doing so that if you're going to use power washing, you're safe with it, you don't damage the wood, but you also have to collect all that water and filter out all those paint chips. A more current method of stripping paint using heat is low heat, and it's from infrared. Infrared heat operates in a different way than heat guns and open torches. What it actually does is the infrared rays go into the paint and they go into the wood below the paint, and the molecules are jiggled in there. That creates the friction, and the bottom layer of paint separates from the wood. The infrared rays also open the grain of the wood, and the natural resins come up, and some of the paint that's sunk in a little bit, that can also come up. So what you're doing is you're not overheating the wood, so it's very gentle on the wood, and you're also making the paint soft because it bubbles up in less than a minute, and then you scrape it off and you're not generating dust. It's soft paint. It comes off in clumps, drops to the ground on your sheeting. If you step on it, yeah, it'll become dust again. But at least while you're doing the scraping, it's soft and not generating dust.
Another method that Catherine didn't mention, but they have different machines out there. One's called a paint shaver, the one's called a paint planer. And they have a shroud on the back end where you can hook it up to your vacuum, keeps the lead dust down, and when it shaves it, it's kind of like what the infrared does. It comes off in pieces rather than it being sanded and causing a lot of dust particulates in the air. That way you can't catch the house on fire. Then as far as your heat guns now can only, when they come into the country, because most of them are made in Japan, they come in and they can only be 1,100 degrees. They used to be 1,500 degrees. But it really doesn't make any difference, because when you're using a heat gun, same thing, any kind of a heating element, and that gets really hot fast. What happens is, especially if you're doing clapboards on the house, is the clapboards have a crack under them, and what happens is when Mrs. Jones opens the back door, it sucks the air up under the clapboards, and if you have the heat in there, and there's a lot of dirt up in there. So the house, when it's ventilating, is pulling dirt up under the wood. So it's really dangerous to use heat things unless you do it the right way. If you want to use a heat gun some places, that's fine. But what you need to do is get a tank sprayer or a spray bottle and spray every crack you see. Take the paint off, spray it again so that you know it's not on fire, and all stop at least an hour before the end of the day if you're using any kind of a heat tool, even a speed heater, and inspect all the spots that you did on the house just to make sure. As far as your chemicals, wood isn't supposed to have chemicals put on in the first place. If you're interior removing and you use chemicals, it's not as bad, because your wood isn't being put into the elements, and there's not moisture being put to them direct. Not a bad way to do it for some people. Exterior, what happens is you put your chemical on the wood and then you scrape it. And what happens is it shoves all the pigment back down into the grain. So you still have lead present. It doesn't cure your lead problem. One of the biggest problems is when you neutralize is the biggest problem. You use a chemical to neutralize it, you're soaking the wood to death, and the biggest problem with paint, it fails because of moisture. So if you're putting water into the wood, you better be, taking the time to spend the time not to paint too soon.
Days? Are we talking days?
Yeah, 2, 3, 4 days. And so that's not the best way to do it, but it does work. Inside, it's not as bad, but outside, what happens with it, and I've seen it happen many times, moisture will reactivate the chemical in the wood from the backside, and your house breeze, there's always moisture in it it's from your stove, it's from your showers, your baths, and if the moisture gets into that chemical and reactivates it, what it does starts to eat the paint off from the inside out, and you'll see many times you drive by somebody's house and he's out there and he's got his shutters all painted up real nice, but he had them dipped at the dip stripper, and 4 years later you see the paint just curl and falling off of it. That's what chemicals can do. As far as neutralizing it, it's almost impossible to 100% neutralize it. And your natural ones that they have out there, they have an orange stripper and they got a soybean stripper, and it's got chemicals in it somewhere. So you're still dealing with a chemical product. As far as power washing, worst thing you can do to your house is put water all up into all the cracks and soak it, make it soaked up, and then think you're gonna, in one day, start scraping, prime it, and paint it. You're gonna have paint failure all over the place. What's gonna happen to it? And you should know how the house is built, because in some houses, they may have insulated it. So if you soak that insulation down, it's gonna fall down to the sill, and eventually it's gonna rot. You can do some rotting in your wood or your 2x4s and stuff like that. The infrared remover, what it does, it's not much different than the way steam would work removing paint, but you can't take your house and put it in a steam box. So the steam box is more of a shop orientated thing. But your infrared, you put it on the surface, and what it does, it heats deep into the grain. It softens the resin. The resin comes up to the top of the wood, and it pushes the paint off, and then you scrape it off. And it's the method that you can almost be guaranteed when you're done with your processes, you're not going to have any lead left. When I use one of these outside on clappers, I still spray water, just because it's a good safety point where you can always be guaranteed that you're not causing a problem. But the speed heater isn't blowing heat up under the clappers or into the soffits. It's just sitting there. And it's heating, doing the same thing as if you were just doing a window. It just heats that paint up and you scrape it off. So it's probably one of the safest methods that you can find, besides using paint shavers and paint and mechanical machines, which you have to be experienced to use those, because they're dangerous, and it takes a good operator not to destroy the wood in the house when you're doing it.
Another method that I want to talk about that is sometimes used in addition to whatever method you're using to strip paint is wet sanding. If you're using chemicals, or you're using heat, or you're dry scraping, sometimes there is some of the paint that is really sunk in there and you want to get it off. Again, you don't want to dry sand. Just take a bottle of water and mist that bare wood down and scrape it, and you'll keep the lead dust from flying around. It's very simple. Whenever you're stripping inside a house, have a spray bottle of misted water. Duffy's talking about having something, a garden pump sprayer with a wand with water, and putting it up in the house, same issue. Just have water present. A common question that we get from homeowners is, I very carefully collected the waste, I've double bagged all this paint waste that's got lead in it, now what do I do with it? It's going to depend on your local ordinance. Before you even start the project, see if you can find online what are the hazardous waste procedures in your county or city or whatever. They're different. Contractors have to be very rigorous in the procedures that they follow. Unfortunately, the same is not true for homeowners, but to be nice to your neighbors and your community, find out what the rules are so you're disposing of those plastic bags safely. If you need more information about lead-safe work practices and how to work with lead paint in your home, go to the EPA website. It's epa.gov/lead.